Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues of Propak Cape 2020. Really mixed feelings this morning because we should really have been down in Cape Town at the Cape Town International Convention Centre. But due to a global pandemic that nobody could have possibly forecast, Propak Cape 2020 has been postponed and moved to June of 2021. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Gary Corrin. I'm Managing Director of Specialized Exhibitions, a division of the Montgomery Group of companies that organize trade shows around the world. It's been a privilege of mine to be involved with the company for the last 2.5 decades. And in fact, as a young starter, I was at the first show that we held down in Cape Town in March of 2000 at the Good Hope Centre in Cape Town. So in many ways, a bittersweet day, but our focus really is to be positive and see the upside, to really presenting this morning a substantive group of panelists that represent the packaging, food processing, plastics, printing and labeling industries in South Africa. Hopefully through a conversational approach of sharing from some subject matter experts, we can get a few insights into the industries that we're involved in and really get some value out of this morning's session, which should last in the vicinity of about 45 minutes. A few housekeeping items before we dive into the morning itself. On your platform, you will have an opportunity to ask questions in a chat icon. Please feel free to post any questions. We will tackle those as a group of panelists as best as we can. But my esteemed panelists have given us an undertaking that they will, in fact, answer any questions post-webinar and disseminate that information to those that pose those questions and are of interest. All of this information can be tracked and followed at www.propakcape.co.za once the webinar has been completed. Propak Cape as a live event, not happening this year, but we really want to talk about matters, food processing, packaging, plastics, printing and labeling in a context of an environment that is unique, has been very scary in many facets. I know that us as a small staff here in Johannesburg have been quite intimately affected by the COVID virus itself. Myself and a number of my colleagues have contracted and recovered from COVID, and without fail, the rest of our staff here, and we know of a lot of industry players as well, have been affected in one form or another. So with that as a backdrop, I'd really like to introduce our first panelist today. Our first panelist is Dikeledi Mosime. She is the CEO of Tinpak. And I see her smiling at me. She's a proudly South African leading manufacturer and supplier of promotional tinware and decorative packaging. Dikeledi hails from Diepkloof, Soweto. And for those of you that pay attention to detail, you'll see a picture behind me. It's an aerial shot of the Joburg Expo Centre, which is not far from Dikeledi's hometown, up here at Nazareth. She's also the founder of Green Coaching Networks, a not-for-profit organization focusing on coaching and teaching life skills. Why am I not surprised? A female entrepreneur putting back into the environment around her, as well as corporate management skills to graduates and who are looking to move into the new corporate world. Dikeledi, thank you for joining us this morning. We look forward to hearing some of your insights. But can I start off by perhaps just asking you a question, which I think is most pertinent. What are the challenges of being a female in the packaging industry? Now, for those international attendees that we have, for those that are not that close to the South African environment, you'll know that it's a very male-dominated sector, and it has been for a number of years. But as Dikeledi is testament to, it's slowly starting to change. Perhaps you could share some insights into what some of those challenges have been for you, Dikeledi.
Thank you, and good morning to everybody. And I think you spot on, Gary, by starting with making a point of the biggest challenge being that of domination and, of course, monopolies for various reasons that have contributed to that. And as a starting out entrepreneur, being female, you're looking for access into markets or in getting into businesses that are already established, relationships that are long-standing. And therefore, one of the challenges as a female, it's the question that you'd be looked at: can you supply good quality product? Can you meet the deadlines? Do you have the capacities? So all of those questions tend to pose a challenge to you starting out as a female entrepreneur, and purely because of those long-standing relationships, as mentioned. The other challenge would be access to funding, obviously, because I'm starting out, I'm a female, I haven't established myself as a business, yet there's plenty of opportunities if you look into the sector itself and with all the innovation and the development inside of the sector. So that is also very critical if we're serious about growing female businesses and giving them a fair opportunity, because you start from a zero base and you're competing with very established businesses that have already built their financial muscle. So that becomes a big challenge for us. And then also competing with cheap imports, obviously us in South Africa, with our expensive resources, expensive labor. We also are a developing market. We therefore are playing catch up when it comes to developed worlds and developed markets that supply some of their products, packaging solutions to our market particularly. So me being a female, small business that's still building up, if I come and present to an opportunity to a customer, obviously I have to compete with those cheap imports that comes into the country. And obviously then I will not come out the winner, because it's not a fair start. They are advanced when it comes to technology and economies of scale, and I'm starting at zero and building up.
Dikeledi, if I can just interject there, how did you get into the industry? Because you're outlining some of those challenges, but I know for a fact that, and we were talking about it offline, that you've got some of the top brands in this country as part of your client base. Perhaps you can just share with us just some of your insights into how, firstly, you got into the industry, and then secondly, how you've managed to develop those relationships with some of those big blue chips, because I think our audience can really tap into that reality. Yes, it's important we outline the challenges, but you've actually overcome some of those. Please share.
Yes, true that. The Tin Pack started in 2013 when the business was owned by Nampek, and they decided that promotional packaging wasn't part of their core, and they closed down the business. I then restarted the business, re-employed the people, and with the support of Nampek, started establishing the business. So to date, I have been able to go it's now, the business is almost 8 years old. And it was more purely just believing in the opportunities, which is one biggest challenge when it comes to women, also thinking big, thinking outside the box, and thinking also of the many possibilities that are available. I looked at it and I know many questions were asked. Why do I think I will revive and grow this business? And I said to them, it just requires determination. It requires innovation. It requires also foresight. And I have been able to apply all of that. And when I go to the customers also, I promise them quality. I promise them, because I understand that when you deal with big brands, one, you need to meet their deadlines. And it's very important to deliver a decent product. It's also very important to understand the required standards. And I have taken the time with my team to understand all of that, so as we don't fail our customers, because it's only in doing things right that this business will grow. And we've invested a lot of effort, time and money for For an example, the business is ISO certified. We understood that we needed to have that. The business is also FSSC certified. We needed to have that certification in order for us to attract the right customers, as well as to meet their quality standards, and also compliance being critical in the packaging world. So it's a very, very concentrated effort with I knew right at the beginning that if with everything all together, it's been 8 years of work, but eventually you get to achieve the desired goals and you get to attract the right customers.
So it looks like the harder you practice, the luckier you get with time. Eh?
Yes. But they say it's not what you do on the practice when you play in the game; it's what you do off-site.
No, very much so. Thanks for those insights. Before I let you go, could you just share with me what your sort of wish list would be for young entrepreneurs, and you know, obviously we've been chatting a little bit prior to preparing for this webinar. Not only are you female, you're Black African. You represent the future of different business sectors in our country from our demographic perspective. What advice can you give young entrepreneurs, and what encouragement can you give particularly females? Because we need, and we believe that certainly from our perspective, we need a lot more females in the main sector, in the formal sector of South Africa's economy, to emerge from the informal segments and to be able to do the sorts of things that you've been doing. What advice would you give young starters?
The first advice I'd give them is that nothing is impossible. If you can dream it, you can do it, and you can have it. So for me, it's a matter of dreaming big. For me, I knew very well that I wanted to build a legacy. And growing up, you mentioned that Diepkloof is just close to Nasrec, which you know that Diepkloof, it's what it looks like. But coming from there, for me, it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of great things. And it's more for the youth, or for female, or for anybody to believe in themselves and to dream big and to just go for it. And whenever you get obstacles, for me, obstacles are the biggest teacher, and that they flex your muscle. And the more and more you fail, the more you learn on how to succeed. Therefore, it's very important to never, ever give up and to never, ever doubt yourself, because everything starts from within. You can dream, but if you don't believe and if you don't do the work, you're not going to go far in life. So it's very important. And the biggest thing also, it's discipline, because also when you fail, you should have the discipline to get up and to go and do it again and to go and do the hard work, because it's not easy building a legacy. It takes a lot of work, a lot of pain, a lot of sacrifices. It looks good at the end, but the work that happens in the background is very, very painful.
Brilliant. Thanks for those insights. And it sets us up nicely just to take us into our next panelist, Mr. Kishan Singh, CEO of Medpack South Africa, WPO, World Packaging Organization Ambassador. Kishan is the CEO of Medpack SA, MD of Global Integrated Business Solutions, Global Ambassador of World Packaging Organization, National Chairman of Institute of Packaging of South Africa from KZN, Education Board, Chairman of Academic Advisory Board, School of Operations and Quality Management, DUT. He has over 32 years of training and consulting experiences in the fields of business systems, design and development, quality management systems, supply chain management, business risk management, and packaging technology. Kishan, a heck of a CV, a lot of experience. Thank you for joining us this morning. Can I ask you, in a very challenging environment, can you just explain what Medpack SA's role is within the South African environment from a packaging perspective, and just give us some insights into that world, please?
Thank you, Gary. Firstly, it's an honor and a privilege for me to be here to represent Medpack and the other organizations that you've just mentioned now. So just to quickly answer the question, Medpack essentially is just around 3 years old, and it was formed in response to DEF, that's the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fishery, their expectations in terms of post-consumer packaging material recoveries. In other words, there's legislation currently that requires the producer or the manufacturer to ensure that packaging that they produce and put into the field in South Africa has to be accounted for post-consumer. So basically, if you are putting 200,000 tons of packaging out there, what is your role in terms of recovering this material so that you can use it in what is known as a circular economy? So Medpack now was formed as a common voice to represent the metal packaging value chain that is then becoming answerable to DEF in terms of how and what the mechanisms are for enhancing this material recovery post-consumer. So it's formed for that reason as a common voice. But I mean, there is, all of the players, all of the participants or the members of Medpack themselves are very much in tune with environmental sustainability and therefore material recycling and circular economies. I think it's the essence of every business right now to look after the planet Earth in terms of sustainability. So, I mean, I'm just giving a short version of this, but I can go on.
Kishan, I watched recently the documentary by Sir David Attenborough, and it was actually quite a positive statement that he made. And what I enjoyed most about it is we always glass half full type people. His parting shot was, we can actually do something about it. So, packaging is a massive part of human life in terms of, and our next panelist, Mareka, will talk a little bit about that as well. But what is happening in the South African environment around environmental issues? This sounds like an exceptionally positive initiative, but I think it could also be a little bit onerous on some of the packaging producers. Is that a fair assessment?
No, 100%. Firstly, the David Attenborough video, if people that are watching this have not seen it, I'd recommend it. It's called A Witness. He's about 94 years old, and in his lifetime, he's witnessed gradually the deterioration of the planet. So, Gary, to contextualize your question, I'm saying we as human beings, over the last 150 years, actually you can take it all the way back to 1780, at the start of the Industrial Revolution, #1. And that is when we started to mass produce. And right now, I'll talk just packaging, from now, we are producing a hell of a lot of packaging, but our roles as responsibility, responsible producers, our roles is really to ensure that whatever we put out into the field, we recover it so that we can reutilize it or channel it into other alternative applications, so that we don't adopt the philosophy of take, make, use, and throw, which is what we've been doing over the last 150 years. It's only in the last, say, 30 years, 25 years, we've adopted this policy of triple bottom line, which is John Elkington actually coined this phrase in the mid-1990s. And this is very, very important that companies, businesses, not only in South Africa, but globally, are starting to realize that for their own sustainability into the future, we've got to understand that raw materials have a finite, there's a finite amount of raw materials in the planet. And the rate at which we take it out, if we can find a way of replenishing it or reutilizing the current materials that are already in circulation, this is it. So DEF is essentially, through the National Environmental Waste Management Act, particularly Section 18, is asking for just this idea, for a full, true circular economy, where we do not become totally dependent on the planet infinitely, but we rather become more responsible about how we utilize natural resources and keep it in circulation rather than take, make, use, and throw into landfill and waste disposal sites. That's not sustainable for sure.
Interesting insights, and what is encouraging is that South African and international producers of packaging are prepared to have the difficult conversation. So we commend those efforts and encourage the Department of Environment and Forestry and Fisheries to continue those conversations, and let's see what we can continue to do in terms of ensuring sustainability. But that takes me into the next question I'd like to pose to you. It's another one of the hats, Kishan, that you wear. Can you just give us, because a lot of us in the packaging industry have heard about WPO, we are aware of it, but could you just tell us a little bit about the World Packaging Organization, your role there, and what some of the initiatives are from the WPO, and why people should potentially from our industry sectors get involved?
Yeah, Gary, okay. So WPO, the World Packaging Organization, was 50 last year. And so over that time, it has gradually become a membership of almost 60 countries across 6 continents. So it has a very, very powerful global footprint. And its essential message is packaging education, packaging technology, spreading the knowledge of packaging technology and bringing the world together as one in terms of understanding the roles of packaging in supply chains and the impacts of packaging on the planet if it's not managed properly post-consumer. So essentially, the objective of WPO is to create awareness of the importance of packaging, and to also to create awareness of reducing and recycling and recovery. So all of the 6 R's we talk about, where we can use packaging in its most beneficial way, rather than seeing packaging as being a source of litter, which I must say the average consumer does look at it that way. But if you really understand the benefits of packaging and how packaging saves food across the supply chain, it's quite a tremendous thing. So WPO is in existence. South Africa, through the Institute of Packaging South Africa, is a member and has been a member for the past 15 to 20 years. When I was the chairman of IPSA here, I had the good fortune of being part of WPO. And I now sit on that executive as an ambassador of WPO. And my job now is to promote the image of WPO like I'm doing here on this platform. But I do that on global platforms as well. And I'm also responsible for conducting all of the technical training for packaging for WPO across the globe. So in other words, when it comes to packaging technology, the various substrates, the manufacturing techniques, printing methods, barcoding, marketing, branding, and all of that, all of those ideas and concepts I actually physically teach at various countries, universities, and governments now on behalf of WPO. So that, in a nutshell, is WPO and our relationship from IPSA with WPO.
Kishan, thank you for those insights. Yeah, very interesting, and long may your work and inputs continue. You've spoken very much from a macro perspective. Dikeledi has spoken to us from an entrepreneurial perspective. Thank you for those insights. I'd now like to introduce our next panelist, Mareike Falls from New Media Publications. We are a non-commercial platform today. Just in terms of sharing around the Propak Cape brand and packaging and plastics. But I'd like to just thank New Media Publications for sponsoring the platform that we are on today. Friends of Propak and friends of the packaging and food processing industries in South Africa. Mareike is an experienced print and digital editor who's passionate about technology, manufacturing, and sustainability. She's been at the helm of the South African food, beverage, and packaging industry magazine, SA Food Review, for 6 years. Mareike Falls will talk to us about latest industry trends. And you're going to talk to us from a little bit more of a detailed technical perspective. So the first question, Mareike, if you don't mind, I'd like to just take you through. The food industry is continually evolving and looking at healthier processing methods that keep the nutritional value of food and beverage products through the use of processing technologies such as HPP or high pressure pasteurization and jet cook technology. What can the food industry expect in terms of sophisticated production technologies that will support the latest trends in food production and packaging? Mareike.
Thanks, Gary. It's really great to join this panel today. I think we can all agree that consumers are ingredient savvy and they want traceability and supply chain information coupled to ethical and sustainable sourcing. So a big trend for 2021 is how manufacturers will lean on technology to balance consumer demand with regulatory and quality standards. Another important area will be flexibility and the ability to do more with less. So the processing lines of the future must adapt to quickly change to different products and recipes without impacting the flow of the line, and this will be true from the processing to the final packaging stage. COVID-19 will have a significant impact on automation, remote handling and robotics, and manufacturers will be looking at replacing analog devices with sensors and meters that could provide them with remote access to machine controls and shifting to cloud computing as well. So in South Africa and on the continent, there is a real need for digital transformation in the industry and conversely, additional investment in internet infrastructure and digital skills by the private sector as well as government.
Thank you for those insights, Mareka. Linked back to the reference that I made with David Attenborough's video that Kishan touched on as well. By 2050, the world's population is predicted to be or to reach 9.1 billion. That's a staggering amount of people.
Yeah.
This will require an increase of 70% of food availability. Can you just give us a bit of insight into sustainable packaging and practices and new commitments and initiatives in the food and beverage sectors?
So I think the primary role of packaging is, of course, to keep food safe, nutritious, and available to consumers and the populace. But with up to 1/3 of food wasted or lost each year, high-performance packaging that must extend shelf life and impact on the high quality of packaging item plays a critical role in delivering food to the people. So packaging today should ideally be made from fully renewable materials, be responsibly sourced, and have a reduced impact on nature. It should also continue towards a carbon neutral production and distribution and enable a resilient food system that is convenient and safe, fully recyclable, and supports an effective recycling system. So for us, there's two areas that is very interested in the food and beverage arena, and that's the use of PET and carton and board. So carton and board is fully renewable and sustainably sourced. This paper-based packaging can meet the need for more safely packaged food for growing populations. And food manufacturers and retailers are increasingly using this product as an alternative in their packaging portfolio. This is, of course, then an important step as well towards a low-carbon circular economy that Kishan spoke about earlier. PET packaging can be made up to 100% recycled PET that then recaptures both the material and the inherent energy of the original package. It can also be recycled multiple times. So PET is definitely a winning combination all around. Petco has a slogan which sort of resonates with all of us, and that says plastic bottles are not trash. The collectors that we see on our roads that sometimes irritate us, they know the value of a recyclable PET bottle, and they alone are responsible for up to 90,000 tons of PET plastics from landfill each year, which is incredible. So once collected, these bottles are then turned back into bottles, as well as many other products. This contributes to South Africa's GDP and eliminates the chance that they end up in the environment as well. They're far too valuable to be thrown away as rubbish.
Sure. That's an interesting one. Just some of those guys that collect the PET, you would never imagine that they could collectively put that amount of volume together. That's absolutely fantastic. As you intimated, not surprisingly, food safety is top of mind this year for food and beverage processing companies, a priority that comes with increasing publicity and obviously scrutiny around recalls and alerts. And yes, it had to get an honorable mention, COVID-19, in this context. What are your insights into the future of food packaging and food safety in an era of a global pandemic? What insights could you share with us in that space?
So the World Health Organization is adamant that COVID-19 is not transmitted by food, which is great. But then, of course, it's incredibly important that specific procedures, practices, and rules be implemented at food manufacturing and packaging facilities. This will then minimize the risk of the virus spreading not to the food, but maybe among the staff and the contractors at these facilities. So food and beverage manufacturers are prioritizing employee training, and they're also focusing on sanitary equipment and standards in their facility and for their employees. So if you look at ISO, the standard enables food companies to have their HACCP and food safety management systems certified to an internationally recognized standard. This is based on HACCP principles as the means of ensuring that both general food safety programs as a prerequisite and specific controls are identified, implemented effectively, and periodically reviewed. So the standard uses many of the principles of ISO 9000 to support the food safety management system and to encourage continuous improvement within a facility and to keep to these high standards. What is interesting is that the pandemic has forced the industry to adapt its approach by finding a workable solution for everybody. So we're seeing a lot of virtual training that defines the future of food safety training, while workable sanitizing of equipment and staff health at ground level remains a priority. We're lucky in the food and beverage industry as well that we have a fantastic training sector, and they've made this transition to digital look almost seamless, which is pretty incredible.
Judging by today, some of us in the eventing industry have also gone into digital, but it's still uncomfortable for some of us. But there are some really nice insights there. Let's change tack slightly, Marika. Propak, Cape and Africa obviously have, in terms of the packaging side, represents pharmaceutical and cosmetics packaging interests. So in the same way that consumers want traceability from their food ingredients that you've discussed with us in personal care and cosmetics industries, clean, safe and proven ingredients are in high demand. What are some of the latest trends in the pharmaceutical and cosmetics packaging from a packaging design or labeling or QR codes? Can you just talk to us a little bit about those two sectors?
Okay. So it's very evident in the clean beauty movement, especially, and consumers are again a lot more knowledgeable about possible irritations caused by synthetic ingredients, fragrances, and the use of preservatives, for instance, in a product. So they're reading their label carefully, and this is a habit that they actually picked up from the grocery aisle. There's a host of apps and websites developed specifically to support consumers to better understand and decode the INCI list of their products. And it places a great emphasis on labeling and scanning barcode technologies such as QR codes. So these types of resources would make people more aware of what they're buying, which is the ultimate goal of that. So current pharma industry trends include serialization and a surge in demand for complementary healthcare. This is, of course, as a result of COVID-19. Staying safe and healthy are fundamental priorities of individuals and our society, and local manufacturers and contract packers are benefiting from the increased demand for immunity-boosting supplements as well as complementary medicines. We've also seen a host of new vitamins and minerals introduced to the market. If you look at serialization, governments globally are taking action against pharmaceutical counterfeiting by implementing serialization requirements. And this is similar to the requirements of Europe's Falsified Medicines Directive. So our country will soon be joining the global fight against counterfeit medicine with the promulgation of track and trace regulations, which is then, of course, centered on serialization. These regulations will also be phased in by providing manufacturers with enough time for adequate preparation, and the compliance date on this would be 2021.
Well, I think the long and the short of it is, as South Africans, we actually, and consumers, we're actually starting to pay attention to some of the detail, aren't we? And I think with access to digital platforms like we have now, we can ask some pertinent questions. One last question for you, just to close out your insights, Marika. When it comes to personal care and cosmetics packaging, sustainability is a huge driver, yet it's a tricky area for local brands as sustainability trends go hand in hand with premiumization. What is your take on going beyond sustainable packaging and responsible and ethical sourcing and transparency into the supply chain in particular?
So premium skin brands especially are transitioning to post-consumer plastic, bioplastics, biocopolyester for their primary packaging. But some of this packaging is, of course, sourced overseas. So to date, the biggest eco-aligned news from South Africa is the launch of a locally produced 70% biodegradable and 100% recyclable cosmetics packaging. This is by a KwaZulu-Natal packaging manufacturer. And this can be really a game changer for the cosmetics and beauty brands. So they don't need to look at international suppliers any longer. Coupled to this is ethical sourcing, again, and transparency in the supply chain. And when it comes to packaging and also the formulation of an actual product. So to meet market demands, beauty and personal care manufacturers should actually implement full transparency in their supply chain to assure consumers that their products are made with minimal risk and the highest possible standards. So the focus on both food and the pharma industry and cosmetics would be clean, safe, quality, ethical products, safe for consumers and safe for the environment.
Marika, thanks for those insights. They say that the psychologists say that you get a window of opportunity to retain people's attention for around about 45 minutes before you start losing them. I think when I talk to the Propak team, that comes down to about 12 minutes. But that being said, we've been bombarded with some questions, and if you allow me, it gives us about 8 minutes, 7-8 minutes, just to put a couple of questions across. And you need to bear with me, not being a subject matter expert in packaging, but rather from an inventing perspective. I've just taken from the sort of man in the street perspective. A lot of the questions coming back are around this issue of recyclable versus biodegradable packaging and some of those trends. Can I put that out to the panelists? Just what are the views around that? Because it all ties into the environment, it ties into sustainability. There's very little resistance in terms of wanting to achieve that. But what are the realities out there on the floor of a manufacturing type environment in terms of recyclable packaging and biodegradable packaging? Kishan, maybe we can just hear an insight or two from you to start.
Yeah, Gary. So I spoke about the 6 R's earlier, and essentially, material. Remember, every single packaging material that we have, whether it's paperboard, glass, plastic, or metal, is ultimately coming out of the planet Earth. So what we need to do is, when we manufacture packaging, we need to have an intelligent mechanism to recover it. So if we can do that and bring it back into the manufacturing cycle, we would say we are able to recycle that, okay, or recover it or reuse it. You see, there's a very strong chance that materials may not necessarily end up in the same cycle as the packaging material. But for instance, with metal, it's possible that you could take the can or the beer can or the beverage can and reconstitute it back into a beverage can, or it could find its way into aluminium windows or aluminium doors, or in the automotive industry or whatever. So that's that. What was the other word you used? You used
biodegradable.
Biodegradable. Bio means through living organisms. Degradable means bringing down to constituent elements or raw materials. So biodegradable means that you are able to, the packaging material is able to find its way back into the planet. So there's a big difference between biodegradable and compostable and things, and I don't think we have enough time to go through all of that here. But I'm seeing a lot of very good questions on this chat as well. So I think what we need to do, Gary, is have a look at all of these questions, group them, and then probably answer them through an email conduit. But for now, I mean, just as an overview, South Africa puts, I'm not sure if people are aware that there's almost 3.6 million tons of packaging material every year that goes into South Africa. And roughly about 58% of that is recovered. I'm just quoting BMI, that's the research organization that does most of our statistical data, packaging statistical data in South Africa. And the packaging industry accounts for probably 75 to 78 billion rands of turnover, which is about 2% of the South African GDP. So such is the extent of materials that you have in South Africa. Therefore, this is a very, very big issue. The question of recycling, recovering material is absolutely paramount in South Africa. This is why it's become a government issue with DEF and Section 18 and Section 28. And anybody needs more detail on that, most welcome to give me a call or drop me an email, and I can unpack a lot of the detail for them.
Kishan, we'll actually take you up on that offer, because it's without doubt thematic in terms of a lot of the questions that have come through. Dikeledi, I'm going to put you on the spot. You run a business, you run a successful business, you do packaging for multinational companies. How do you balance the reality? You have expectations of these big multinational companies. If you don't deliver, you'll be cut. You're gone. You're out of the supply chain. You need to balance all of these sorts of realities while running a business and paying your staff and literally feeding people as part of that process. How do you, in terms of your business, go about trying to achieve that balance? It would be nice just to hear some of your insights.
I think I have an advantage that I came from a big corporate. So that background, I was a general manager once. So I knew, being on the other side, what it takes to be able to source products and to supply products, and also the process, the supply chain that is required, and the support systems. So when I started Tinpack, that was one of my priorities, that I had to understand that in order for me to have a sustainable business, I need to have sustainable structures, sustainable systems, and sustainable throughout the processes, packaging, quality controls, understanding all the dynamics of from making a tin to getting it to a customer. And therefore, I've built the business with all those structures to ensure that we deliver on these multinationals, because we're talking big brands, as you mentioned, it's multinationals, and you cannot afford to not have the brand printed right. And also for us, being a promotional packaging company, it's very critical, because that's the image of the company. So attention to details and resourcing the business to the T, it's very critical. And also just my personal involvement, I also spend basically all my time in the business to ensure that we deliver on our promises, because reputation is critical also for building a sustainable business. So it's a combination of all those factors that I have put into place in the business to ensure that we continue to succeed into the future. And we aim to be one of the biggest promotional packaging companies in Africa going into the future. So that takes a lot of work and a lot of focus.
I have no doubt you'll achieve that. And what I've loved about today's conversations is that it's just the overwhelming sentiment of positivity and opportunity. So perhaps most opportune, as we come to the end of our sharing today, Marika, just to have a closing comment from you, as as Food Review, as you've shared some of the technical detail with us today, you're at the sort of coalface, so to speak, of a lot of these trends, a lot of what's happening, a lot of South Africa's capabilities, a lot of what's happening beyond our borders and into the African continent. But perhaps just a closing remark from you in terms of where you see us going, just really from a packaging and a food processing, printing type industry perspective.
Thanks, Gary. I really think we can only go forward. I think we are, in South Africa, especially Gateway to Africa, uniquely placed to service those markets. I think we have world-class processing facilities and people on the ground. I think our scientists, our food formulators, our packaging experts are top-notch. I have every reason to believe that the way forward is going to be very, very good. We're all hoping 2022 is going to get us to some sort of normalcy again. I think that everything will bode well. I think the again, we need obviously our economic situation needs to get improvement. We need some buy-in maybe from global companies, which we are also seeing. But for the most part, I have every belief that 2021 is going to be a great year for the food, beverage, and packaging industry.
Well, on that note and with those words, I'd like to thank our panelists for the giving of their time today. Propak Cape is chomping at the bit to be able to create a face-to-face live event again. As an aside, as a responsible company, what we undertaking an exercise in November, 25th and 26th of November here at Joburg Expo Centre, where we're putting together a pro bono, so no commercial interest event together under the current regulations, COVID-19 regulations, just to demonstrate that coming to an event like a Propak Cape that's happening in June 2021, you will be as safe, arguably safer, coming to an event like that where we have all of the health protocols in place to ensure people are safe during a global pandemic. And in fact, it looks like the Minister of Tourism will be attending that event as well, just to show what's possible. So on behalf of Propak Cape and Propak Africa, the mother event that happens in 2022, we'd like to thank all of our participants today, all of our attendees, our listeners. Send those questions through. Some incredible insights from very differing backgrounds and very differing perspectives from all the various industry sectors. Folks, your CVs are incredibly impressive. We know that, but it's not about that. It's about your willingness to share and put back into the industries that you serve. And that really strikes a chord with us as a business and Propak as a brand. So a final word of gratitude and thanks. Let's keep the positivity going as the South African economy responsibly reopens. And stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll talk along the way. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.